One of those categories, bikes, have seen sales skyrocketing since the start of the pandemic. So for more on that, we want to bring in our next guest. We have Chad Brown. He's the CFO of Trek Bicycle. And Chad, I mean, it's been quite a year for your business. We've seen a couple of the numbers, but just talk us through how you've been able, if you've been able to keep up with demand and what the past 6 months have been like for your business.
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me. For the bike industry, it's been a couple of decent years for the overall industry. And coming into the year, it was a solid start to the year, I think, for the overall industry. And, March 14th for the overall industry, we started getting all the notifications of it closing down and retail closing down and the pandemic happening. For a couple of weeks, it was sort of touch and go as to what was going to happen. And then there was this inflection point, like Easter weekend, the first week or so in April, where we just started seeing some signals from the field and from retail sales that something was happening. People were buying bikes. They were looking to get outdoors. They needed to be socially distant. Kids were home from school. And, it just sort of took off like a rocket ship from there.
How much have your sales increased just in terms of what you're seeing this year versus back in 2019?
Yeah, I think like the overall, the industry as a whole, I think if we look, the first 3 months of the year, 10, 15% were up. In the boom, I think you saw the industry grow somewhere between 50 and 100%, depending on the category and the business. But it's been really strong since like that mid-April through the current period. It's been a real boom so far.
Chad, what does your manufacturing pipeline look like right now? I know you've got factories outside of the U.S., in Europe, as well as China. We've heard a lot of companies who've said, given what they experienced over the first several months of the pandemic and the closures, they're reconsidering moving things closer to home. What does that look like for you right now? And is that something you're thinking about?
Well, so first of all, the factories look busy because we're making a lot more bikes and there are a lot more bikes on the way. Our supply chain reflects where our customers are. We have manufacturing in the U.S., we have it in Europe, we have it in Asia. And, it reflects where our customers are and where our sales are represented. We certainly saw the signs early in this boom, and we've been ramping production since then. There's just some really strong sales around the world. It's in Europe, it's in the U.S., and our factories and our supply chain have been rallying strongly since April, May timeframe to make sure we can keep up with the demand right now.
Rick Newman here. I wonder if I can just press you a little bit more on China in particular, because that's obviously been a focus for President Trump. Bicycles and bicycle parts did get hit with some tariffs, and now we sort of have this uneasy truce known as the Phase 1 trade deal. Are you comfortable sourcing everything from China that you were doing before all of this began, or is that raising costs, and are you shifting some things away from China?
Like I said, we have manufacturing around the world. We have it not just in China, but other parts of Asia, in Europe. And, really mostly what we need is stability. We need predictability. We can handle increased costs. We can handle commodities fluctuation. We can handle tariffs. We just need stability and a level playing field, and we'll take it from there.
How do you handle tariffs on that? Are you able to absorb the cost? Are you able to pass it along? Are you able to get it back from suppliers? I mean, there's been this big question all along: is who really ends up paying these tariffs in the end?
Yeah, I think ultimately the tariffs end up being a tax on the consumer. There's really no other way around it. There's only so much money in a supply chain that a business is going to make, and ultimately we have to figure out a fair way to share the costs amongst our supply chain. And then ultimately, I think we've seen, and it's proven out, that these tariffs that have been placed have ultimately been a tax on the U.S. consumer.
Chad, have you guys been able to address the supply shortages? Because I know you were saying that you're doing your best to keep up with demand, but I've talked to a number of people who were looking for bikes for themselves or for their children, and they weren't able to find bikes. They went to a number of shops. They were nowhere. They were sold out everywhere around this area, at least outside of New York. So where was the hiccup in supply, and has that been addressed?
Well, so first of all, anyone that wants to buy a bike now, there are plenty of bikes. I would encourage you. You can go to trekbikes.com. We'll help with the concierge service to help you locate a bike. You can call any of the truck bike retailers around the world. There are a lot of bikes in stores. I think the days of empty bike shops should be past us, but there are plenty of bikes out there right now. There's also a lot more bikes coming in through even the boom time and the shortages. We've been shipping out tens of thousands of bikes per week. So there's a lot of bikes coming in. They're just going out of our warehouses immediately. And in terms of like how we responded with our supply chain, as soon as we saw those inflection points happening early April, we stepped on the gas and kept ordering. Earlier in the year, in the late January, February timeframe, there were definitely some stops in production from overseas. And I think those factories caught up over the summertime, and now they're just trying to keep up with the increased demand that we're seeing around the world.
And Chad, real quick, just in terms of where you're seeing the most demand, city versus more suburban or rural areas, do you have any data on that, just in terms of whether or not people are using this more for recreation or if they're using it as a mode of transportation for getting around cities because they don't want to take Ubers or they don't want to use the subways?
Yeah, I think the good news is we're seeing really solid demand in both areas. In more urban areas in the cities, people are looking at the bicycle as a viable alternative. E-bikes in New York City continue to be a great option. And so people are using the bicycle for transportation, and it's a great green alternative to taxis or buses or automobiles. And then around the world, too, we're seeing families and kids and a whole new generation of riders getting on bikes for the first time. They're getting off screens, they're home from school. Their parents need them to do something during the day, and families are riding bikes together. It's awesome. We're seeing an entirely new generation of people fall in love with the bicycle.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.